Happy new financial year.
It's really
yes,
the
and
thing
what a
nowadays.
financial year it's been, eh?
Unbelievable. Who would have thought? Who would have thought it again? Actually, one of my team members was saying it's her favorite word. I don't even know how to pronounce it. What is it? EFS.
What? Say that again.
That one of her favorite words is EFS. End of financial year.
Oh, the old OOFUS. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. I get
it. Because of end of financial year sales. Now it makes
All right,
sense.
Andy.
Now
Okay,
it
Andy.
makes
sense. All right. Well, while we've got a few people jumping on, folks, welcome everybody. Good to see everyone here. Andy's just gone and you there? Oh, he's back. Jolly good. There's Alison, as always. Welcome back to those who join us regularly. Good to see you guys. Jason and Andy here, back in the saddle or in the wagon. I don't know what the saying is, but we're back together. It's been a few weeks in a row where either Andy's been solo or I've been solo, or it just hasn't come together. But happy to be back with you, my friend, and welcome back to those who are coming to see us hang out on a Friday at Wealth, Wine and Wisdom while we're getting all warmed up and people are jumping on. Quick, do the intros. Andy Fenton, Jason Witten, as it says down the bottom in our little name tags. We've been holding a bit of a weekly debrief since the beginning of COVID, helping our respective communities in the world of property and the share market. Andy in banking and equities and shares for over 20 years. Me in the world of real estate for over 20 years, helping our clients and customers do the best they can and be safe, but also be on it when it comes to investing. So, we've been debriefing for a while, and certainly in and around the world of business owners is one of the niches, the worlds we play in as business owners ourselves, as property investors ourselves, and as equity investors ourselves. We've got a little bit of a unique understanding of how a few of those things go together. So we get together every Friday, do a debrief, Andy. We've got a few people diving in today. And Laura, g'day, how are you? And Bob's here. Bob's a regular. Good to see you, Bob. And Michelle's down in Melbourne, which is great. But
mate, the only place not in lockdown, mate. It's a cruel and unusual twist of fate, whereby I do believe it's a conspiracy theory. I believe that the rest of Australia has just gone, look, Melbourne's come out of lockdown, so let's all go into lockdown so they can't travel anywhere. Because we were thinking, school holidays, we're off. We're going to go up to Queensland. We're going to go to, and who would have thought? Because when it started happening, I was thinking, you know what? There's always the Northern Territory. And then Northern Territory went into lockdown. I'm like, you can't be serious. It's unbelievable. Usually the wall was originally built around Victoria to stop us from leaving and spreading the virus, and then it was to keep everybody out. It's unbelievable. So we're still here, not traveling, not in lockdown, but not able to go anywhere.
There you go, Andy. Well, a few people are jumping on now. So g'day, Karen. G'day, Chris. How are you, mate? And Deanne's popping on by. Andy, there's two of you right now in your screen, and which is wonderful.
That's you can be pretty lucky, can't you?
Well, I think here we go. We could do the dueling twos. You could put yours back, and then we could have Sidham double. There you go. Oh well, Alison said she went to Puckapunyal today. Gee. Sorry about that, Alison. There's not much out there, that's for sure.
Yep, you'll just see all of the cadets doing their military stuff out there.
Absolutely. But folks, listen, as we do, we get a chance to sort of catch up with you guys and have a bit of a chat, have a bit of a yarn about what's going on. And in our travels, we thought we would try and make a little bit of sense of what we get up to on these nights. And we sort of get around to it in a few ways. First things we do is sort of debrief, Andy, what's in the news. That way I got to get what's in the news. So, all right, yep. What's in the news? So we'll have a little look at that in a minute, folks, and sort of say what's in the news. While we're doing that, we'd love you guys to sort of think of any questions that you might have. Certainly, we've had a few questions over the weeks, and we've stored up a few of those. Andy's going to talk about end of financial year and starting the new financial year also, things to remember to get off to the right start and maybe finish off. And also, we've had a question about life insurance and the appropriate cover when borrowing. So we're going to sort of jump onto that a bit later on as well, and make sure you're here for that, team, because it's an important one. And then we might do some stuff like things you should know a little bit later on. Just depends on how we get rolling. But so that's the gist of the show tonight, folks. So what we do is try and give it a bit of structure, so Andy and I don't waffle on without aim, because we do like to catch up. But certainly, what's in the news is always interesting, Andy. And I thought I might sort of jump in on this one and kick it off on my side, and then you can have a little nudge at what's going on for your neck of the woods. But let me have a bit of a look at what's in the news right now here, in and around the property market. And it's not necessarily hot off the press sort of stuff right now, to be honest. But the reality is, for many of us, finance is certainly for property investors, finance is something we've got to keep an eye on. And there's something interesting going on with the amount of volume coming through. This is a chart. It's a little bit older, but right now we're seeing huge amounts and massive amounts of owner occupiers back in the marketplace, Andy. And a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, that's great, but it's actually loaded up with one style of owner occupier right now. I'm doing a little bit of a pop quiz, ladies and gents, a bit of a pop quiz.
Jeez, I love these.
Which type of owner occupier is out there getting financed like there's no tomorrow? Like, I don't know, I was trying to come up with a non-rude saying. I just couldn't come up with.
Margaret, it's Friday. Just pretend like we've had a few more to drink.
It's all over it like a rat up a drain pipe or whatever it might be. But owner occupiers, you're thinking, oh, gee, everyone's upgrading their home. But that technically not the case. So a little pop quiz while we're having a bit of a chat. Investors are still well behind the eight ball when it comes to finance recovery. But Andy, what we are seeing, and we've seen it probably for the last maybe 2 to 3 months, really good investor offerings, interest rates, and also flexibility in the investor space. And one of the things that I do love when it comes to us as property investors is interest-only offerings at the appropriate time at the beginning of your lending and your acquisition phase. Not forever. You certainly want to reduce your debt at the appropriate time. But what I do know, and both Andy and I, help people with their budgets and their cash flows often, sometimes you can't do both. You can't, get the second property or the third property and pay off the debt at the same time because it consumes too much cash flow. So sometimes you got to balance it up. Get the second or the third property and then get onto the debt reduction. Yeah. So what we are seeing in this space with the investors making a comeback, Andy, is that we're getting lots and lots of good offerings again. We're getting the 90% offering back out there, which I do like. Certainly when you're in that first sort of 1 to 3 properties, getting your money working a bit harder and faster for you is great. And the interest-only offerings out there in the marketplace, which are pretty good. Right now I did this mathematics for one of our buyers. We've got one in common, Andy, a client. And the interest-only calculation for them on a brand new property after tax, they're on a pretty good income, is $13,000 positive cash flow in your pocket on a brand new property. It was like, wow, that's just mind blowing. So, and the interest rates are 1.99% for 2 years, so interest only fixed. So it's not too bad. So out there's some of those offerings for the person who's got the right circumstance. That is coming back and is looking excellent. So it's kind of like not hot off the press news, but it's certainly a bit of the news that I think everyone should be paying attention to right now out there in the marketplace. And certainly one I think we should we should keep an eye on. The other thing is that I was talking about it this morning, Andy, in my rant, my morning rant. I had a bit of a rant this morning, and I'll whack myself down in the bottom there.
No, you weren't ranting, were you, Jason? You don't do that.
Maybe not. Maybe me. Not maybe me, but someone I know. That's not very good there. But I was having a bit of a yarn this morning and talking about the media reporting on the property prices like it's the share market, literally every day. Yeah, it's gone up, 1% or 0.5% or whatever. And I think it's ludicrous to look at the share market that way, folks, or the property market that way, like the share market. It's just not as fast, even though, Andy, we've talked about it speeding up. It's certainly not as fast as the stock market, right? So, but one of the things that I was talking about, and you and I have chatted about it for a while, Andy, is that when property prices go up and wages don't keep up, the ability for property prices to continue to rise will be limited. And there's only two things that can happen. You can either reduce the cost, which is the interest rates have gone down to 2/5 of bugger all, or people's wages can rise. One of those two, interest rates coming down or wages going up, will allow people more buying power and capacity to buy. So, what's happening out there? There's a bit of rhetoric, and I think an uneducated rhetoric around the property prices being reported like literally weekly and monthly, and even this little report here. Oh, have a look at what's happened to date this year. For 5 months, and it's like it's interesting, but it's not the way to look at it. But my point is this one here, Andy. Wages are still a challenge in our marketplace, and fingers crossed, our economy kicks in the next 12, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years when it comes to wage growth. But property prices right now will start to splutter, and you'll see the likes of Sydney run out a bit of steam when it comes to property prices and wage compression and affordability and yield and so on. So you'll see the rents come back up is what I'm sort of seeing for stuff in the news. So we're already seeing rents to come back as way we go. So I haven't been checking the chat. There we go. There you go. Gee, I was right into my rant there, but Luke, I think you got it first off the rank. There you go. Luke was saying, I know who those buyers are, and he's dead right. And it's the first home buyers. Have a look at that, Andy. Look at that. It's that was the boost after the GFC in home buyers finance commitments. And have a look at this. Almost identical when it comes to the volume of first home buyers that come out of the woodwork every 10 years. Every 10 years, the government dusts off the old, let's give the first home buyers a leg up. And it works for a few months and gets the party started again. So, there you go. Luke, you're right onto it, mate. Good job. And away you go. So it's an interesting one as you go. And you dive into the details of what is actually going on out there, and what's sort of happening, because it's not the person who's got their home. They're not upgrading, Andy. They're not selling this home and buying another one. It's the owner occupiers that are driving that new home buyer stuff, which is fantastic. The government let people have access to their super. The government gave extra boosts. I just helped my brother out, and he's ended up making money by buying a property with his partner, like actually made money. Like after all said and done, put 10 grand in cash in his pocket. You're like, how's that? You have a free house plus a 10 grand cash bonus,
Mate, it's going to be interesting looking back on this in 20 years' time, isn't it?
It will be. It'll be one of those moments that people will refer to and go, look, this is where it started, whatever that thing is.
It'll be
But last but
episode
not
number
least,
7,000 by then, I reckon.
oh, mate, I tell you, yeah, it'd be interesting. But last but not least, in this sort of space, one of those things I think I'm probably jumping onto sort of things you should know anyway, folks. But since 2006, this is a chart. A bit of a shout out to Timmy Boyle. He's always supplying us with some good charts. He's a good fella, and I love his stuff that he provides us. But this is an interesting chart. So we can see when property prices kind of quarter over quarter have posted like a negative return, right? And you and I have chatted about this, Andy. When the APRA stuff came in, APRA came in there, and property prices, like property growth, not prices, but growth process or growth momentum, went on a slide, and it posted the largest negative growth we'd seen, in over 20 years. So since 2001. So a lot of people sort of forgot about that one. Wasn't as gnarly as the GFC or post GFC when the first home buyers were turned off, et cetera, et cetera. So, but it's interesting. We're back here now, and we've got a little bit of positive momentum. But the point is, folks, property prices or growth happens in a positive and it happens in a negative, which is all completely normal and natural, just like the share market too. So, that's my stuff, mate, for what's in the news this week. And we do have a few questions coming through, but before we answer those, I think I'll throw back to you and say, what do you got for us, mate?
Right. Well, it's not overly sexy, but I think it's what everyone should be. There we go. What we should be paying attention to at the moment, and just a bit of a reminder, because it is the new financial year, and there's changes. Well, they weren't ahead; they're actually now. So we've spoken about them for the budgetary changes, but let's have a little bit of a crack at what's going on. The first one off the back is Super 10. Super is now up to 10%, which the business owners are not going to like too much. And for all the journalists out there who are having pops at small business owners and saying that I've forgotten the terms that they used, unethical behavior, you go and become a bloody business owner, all right? So unfortunately for small to medium businesses, during a period of time where it is, for many businesses, extraordinarily challenging, they're going to have to fork out an extra 0.5% into their employees' wages. So one to look out for here depends on what your contract says. And they're calling employers sneaky. They're calling them unethical. I reckon if you get the legislation right, then you're neither. It's just the way that it is, right? You can't have it both ways. So look, for those of you who want to know what's going on there, if you've got a salary which is a package, so you've got $120,000 package, well, then your wage will not go up. You will get more super, but you will get less in your pocket. And that's the way that it should be from a contract perspective. The government are actually coming out and making a little bit of a noise, and I don't know the full clip on it as yet because the noise has only just started. But the government have come out and made some noise in and around the appropriate pass on. And so this is them trying to have a double dip at their legislation, because ultimately the way that I've read it and the way that I understand it is that it is 10% super on your salary. So if you've got a package, that means that you get no more money. But if you're not on a package, if your contract says, $100,000 plus super, then it's $100,000 plus the $10,000 instead of the $9,500. So good for the employees to go out there and have a look at your contracts. Those of you who are in small to medium business world or employees of small to medium businesses, probably good to have the conversation with your boss as well. Just so, remind them because they can get busy and make sure that they're on the button as well. And they can start budgeting for that, but also just to get on the front foot and have the conversation so that it's that you just know where you stand. Better to have the conversation than let it run. So, mate, that's the first one, and that
one. Andy, just quickly before you move on to the next one, I know it's only talk, but there is talk about super going all the way to 12%, isn't it? 12.5%. over the next decade. And again, you and I talk about this all the time. When we talk about how much money this is in comparison to a percentage of your earning life, take super seriously, gang. If you're receiving it, it is an absolute golden opportunity to maximize your wealth into the future if you understand what to do with it. So, it's going. It's 9.5, 10, up to 12. Is it 12 or 12.5? They reckon by some.
Mate, I reckon they'll keep on pushing it up because the figures are sort of sit in and around. If you want the type of retirement you need, it's somewhere between 15 and 20 is what you need to be packing away.
Yeah.
So I reckon they'll just keep pushing that up. So I guess we'll wait and see. We've got multiple different government changes likely before that happens, or maybe
Singapore's 20%. Singapore's 20%. Yep.
Yeah, but it will have a bit of wage suppression if they do it too quickly, and that's the thing that they've got to be careful of because ultimately, businesses, and if you're in small business, cash flow can be tight. Somebody's got to pay for it, right? And I think that there'll be a combination where sometimes the employers are paying for it, and then sometimes it'll be the employees are getting clipped on it. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that changes over time. But for now, 100%. It's now 100%. It's 10%. It's 10%, and you can take that as 100% correct. It is 10% of your salary now. So just have a conversation in and around it, and get used to it. I mean, there's so many funky things you can do with super now. In that you can get apps, you can trade your own shares, you can buy some Tesla in there if you're on the right platform. We've got a cracking platform that we use for a lot of clients that allows you to buy your own shares and things like that. And from my perspective, it also gives you. I mean, I don't get professionals to assist with the management of it, but you can kind of take some interest in some things that are interesting. And some great stocks are like the Tesla, and then you've got your Afterpays, which everyone was, buzzing around. And I almost don't know anybody who didn't have some sort of a story about making some decent coin on Afterpay. So yeah, mate, I pay attention to it. It's getting up. It's going to keep going. What's his?
Absolutely. I think that could be Brian. If that's you, Brian, give us a shout out. You might be coming in via one of the Facebook groups, but there's more flexibility in Singapore for your super. You can actually use it to purchase your home and for other things as well. So, it's an interesting one, that stuff. If we were to wax lyrical a little bit about, our opinion on that sort of stuff, like I'm a big fan of having somewhere like a super or other things where you could contribute to, which is a lower tax treatment, and certainly add some value to your own life. In Australia and many places of the world, your home. I think I read a stat the other day, Andy, up to 68% of the average Australian's wealth is in their own home. And while that's kind of good and scary at the same time, we all know that having your own home gives a sense of kind of pride, certainty, emotional well-being, whatever it might be.
Poverty.
If you're buying one in Sydney, gee, I tell you, or Melbourne, there you go. Awesome. All right, well, mate, 10, 100%. It's 10. It's on. Make sure you take your super seriously, gang. That's the gig, really, at the end of the day.
And just on that, mate, because you mentioned the property side of the equation, and look, I reckon it would be great to be able to bring some rules around super to acquire your property in there, because as a part of a longer term wealth strategy, your principal place of residence is 100% there. And there's so many other little strategies that you can use. It's a tax-free asset, and it's an asset. It is an investment, even though you live there, but it's tax-free. Right, as long as you own it in your own name and it's your principal place of residence, hasn't been used as an investment property, all of those relevant disclaimers. But a lot of the time we use that as part of strategies for clients in order to be able to maximize benefits, maximize their tax position, and then utilize that with super strategies. So you dwindle the super down, and then you have an intentional downsize built in there when you can't be bothered mowing, or out and feeding the cows or mowing large bits of lawn and all of that sort of jazz that goes along with the sort of larger properties, or hoovering 4 bedrooms that never get used anymore, all of those sorts of things. So it really is and should be a part of the overall wealth strategy for people for their longevity. And I think that a lot of people miss it because they always go, it's the house and that's what it is. It's not. It's actually another asset that's in the kitty.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. It's almost, this is not advice, but, it's the idea of like 60 to 70 should be well funded by your super, 70 to 80 should be well funded by the PPR downgrade, and then the spare capital that you've created between the two of the spare assets would absolutely fund 80 to 100 very, very comfortably. So, at the end of the day, folks, whether we all realize it or not right now, most of us listening in right now are going to live well beyond 80 or 90 years old. And, we have to fund it. we have to fund it. We don't want to be miserable at that back end of life, What is, right. I remember Billy Connolly saying, in a comedy skit, Andy, like, why do I want to eat bloody lettuce now and add 5 more years to my life when I'm 95? He said, that's rubbish. Go hard now and drink and smoke right now because I don't care about adding 5 years when I'm 80. I can't do anything with them, like.
Right. He's also been known to saying, I'm sick of people saying that that life is short. It is the longest bloody thing you will ever do.
That's funny. That's good. There you go.
So, nice, mate, Super's number one. Here's some stuff that is changing this year. So we've now got, so if we have a look here, we've got our balance transfer cap. So it was $1.6 million that you could have in super per person, and then turn that into potentially a tax-free income stream. It's now up to 1.7. So that is there. That's a massive one if you're in that if you're in that phase. And if you're in and around that amount, then you should be looking at seeing how you can manage that transfer balance cap. So the 1.7 tax-free dollars in super once you're above the age of 65 or above the age of 60 and retired was 1.6 million. Now you've got 1.7 million, and we're looking at peppering that with all sorts of strategies down the track. That's an absolute corker. We've then got our non-concessional. Our concessional contributions cap. And for those of you who get sick and tired of the government changing the name of these things every 2 minutes, it's had 4 different names. It's 4 different names it's had since. And you know what they changed? Nothing. Nothing. Just the name. Just the name. It was, and I like the first one. It was a deductible contribution. Call it what it is.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
It's a deductible contribution or an undeducted contribution. That to me was perfect, but they've changed the bloody name 4 times. So anyway, concessional contributions, which is the contributions that are made by your employer, or their contributions in which they attract a 15% tax on the way into super. But ultimately, you can claim a tax deduction yourself if you're contributing. So you used to have a maximum amount here, and this is a great tax planning strategy that people can use. Your concessional contributions cap was $25,000. It's now up to $27,500. So that is great. I reckon this is going to continue to go up. I reckon it's a sure thing that this is going to go up, and probably should be going up more aggressively. Again, it was 35, then they brought it down to 25. Now they brought it back up to 27.5. It's like they just can't stop touching it. It's unbelievable, like a little boy.
They're menaces. Now explain the next one, because a lot of people ask me about this, Andy, like the non-concessional, that is you can put X dollars in from money that you've already paid tax on.
Yeah, and look, and this is really interesting because there are strategies where we are called recontribution strategies, and I would be bordering on giving advice if I went too in depth in it. But what a lot of people don't know is we actually have a death tax in Australia, and a lot of people don't understand that. And it was something, I think it was Keating who opened the door to it. It was a little while ago now, and my history is escaping me at the moment. But money that has had a tax deduction that is sitting in super is classed, right? Is a taxable portion, right? Now, in the event of death, and your super goes to a non-dependent, so somebody other than your partner, or it's unlikely that it would be children, and your children have to be dependent on you, financially dependent. But if that goes to a non-dependent, then they've got this thing, anti-detriments tax, and you never see it, and nobody knows about it, or very few people know about it. The only people who realize it is that when they get given the check and they look at the super fund, they go, "Oh, it's $100,000 in super, but I got a check for 85. Where'd the other part go?" It's the anti-detriments tax. So one way that you can get rid of that is to have more untaxed contributions to the fund. And so these are the standard non-concessional. So the difference between concessional and non-concessional is that one is pre-tax, one is post-tax. So a concessional contribution is made on pre-tax dollars. So from your employer, or if you're a self-employed person, that's money from your company that you put into super and you haven't yet paid tax anywhere on it. A standard non-concessional contribution is where the money's coming from your personal bank account. So you've already paid tax at your marginal tax rate, and that money goes into super. That it has no tax attributed to it as it goes into super. So if you put 100,000 in, there's $100,000 that reflects in your balance, zero tax, and it forms a part of your tax-free component of your superannuation fund. So if you put $1 more in than your $100,000, you breach the cap, or you trigger what's known as the bring forward provision. And if there's a certain rules that you have to pass, but if you qualify, then you can make 3 years contribution in a single year. So, for example, there's some clients that we're using the strategy for now, whereby we've just done $100,000 in the last month, coming up to the end of the year, and we'll now put 330 in because we can use 3 years into the future. But then you can't make another non-concessional contribution until after those 3 years are finished.
Yep. And Andy, one last little definition on that one, which is for a few people listening in, maybe quite relevant. You could use. Let's say you're at a point where you got 200 in your super. You want to make sure you've got enough in there for a property. You've got some equity in a property somewhere. You could take some equity from your property and contribute it, $100,000 into your super as a non-concessional contribution to boost up your super to purchase a property in there, right? So that's kind of, there's, other than, that's not advice, folks. That's just like strategy or concepts, but that's applicable too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so people need to get smart now about how they're using the super, because there's so many little they've called it the simple super system, but they've really just made it spastically complex. And it is really just, I mean, it keeps people like you and me talking because we obviously love diving deep into it. But for your average sort of Australian, they've really made quite a meal of it. And but it's worthwhile spending the time to wrap your head around, because when you do, then you'll start to see that the strategies are there, but everything is longer term now, Jace. Like it used to be, you'd go and see a financial advisor just before you're about to retire, and we'd just go boom, 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 shuffle everything around, save huge amounts in tax, and then bang, you're off. Now, in order to achieve the same thing nowadays, you actually have to plan 10, 15 years out. And that's just the reality. The potential for you to do incredible things is there, but you've just got to be disciplined and you've got to take the long journey. And it is as simple as that.
Love it, mate. And obviously, if a couple are together, you can combine these like concepts. 1.7 turns into 3.4 and so on, right? And standard non-concessional turns into whatever it is it 300 and 430 each or something like that, or whatever those numbers add up to. So like you said, you have to be smart, right?
Yep. So that's each, right? Each for each member. There's my hieroglyphics. Beautiful handwriting. Got that from the Penn School. So yeah, 100%. That's each. So you can line up your strategies, get your houses in there, whatever you want. That's up. Everything's up at the moment. Everything got indexed and largely wasn't even spoken about in the budget. And the other thing to be aware of now as well is the eligibility for spouse offset contribution and the co-contribution, which is basically it's sort of tax-free or it's money that's gifted to you via the taxman or by the Superman, whichever one you want to call it, to match certain contributions that you make into super. Now, you need to be below a certain wage threshold. So this isn't for higher income earners. This is for lower income earners. But just be aware that those are now up to the balance transfer cap of the 1.7 million. So, mate, those are the key things that are actually changing in the world at the moment, and everyone should be aware about and really starting to figure out what that looks like for them. And especially all of those people who have gone out and made some good money on a lot of the properties of recent. You can start to figure out, well, how can you minimise your tax and things like that getting into the future. So be prepared, start planning.
Mate, I love it.
And mate, that's my little what's in the news at the moment.
Well, mate, it's always nice to know that we have a few little strategic conversations worth having when it comes to this sort of stuff. That's for sure. But we do have a few people on the old the questions. Any questions? We got a few people quite keen on asking us a few questions, Andy. But we have one here. I'll sort of scroll back up the top, and the first one from Bob, and he says, like, what do you reckon? Is it better to buy some shares now or wait for the blood in the streets? You know, you and I are pretty well long-term investors. We're sort of like buy well and keep an eye on things. But what are your thoughts in the share market, mate?
Mate, I think that, and it's not sexy, but it is pretty simple. And, those people who want to time markets, you're going to be right or you're going to be wrong, right? And the markets, I think it was Buffett who said, markets can remain irrational longer than most people can remain solvent. So
it's true, isn't it?
my take on, mate, look, to be fair, we've made some incredibly good timely calls, but a lot of the calls that we make there's a significant amount of luck that goes along with them. And there's some decisions that we've made previously that didn't quite line up. And the trick, I guess, from the investment side of the equation is just making sure that the strategic bets that you do take don't detract in a large way, but can add significant value when they do. And so being strategic about it. But from my perspective in the markets, it's just you've got to constantly be investing. And if you're constantly investing, you will ride all of the market cycles. All right. So $350 a week, if you can punch that away and you get an average of about 7% return in 18 years, that's $700,000. Again, not crazy sort of complex sort of stuff, but then you don't need to worry about market timing. You don't need to worry about these things. And then if you want to have a little bit of a punt on some stocks and things like that, whereby you're going to go into more high risk, happy days. You've got a strategy that underpins it in the behind the scenes, and then you can have a little bit of a play. And I'm a big fan of that. I think that if people really want to be investing, then have a little bit. Have your fun account. Have your gambling account, if you want to call it that. Something that you can have a bit of a punt, which gives you a bit more education in regards to investing in general. Because one thing that I do know is, as soon as people start to pick individual stocks or start to do those sorts of things, their interest levels go up. They start watching, they start seeing trends, they start understanding markets a hell of a lot better. So, is it now? Look, my belief in our markets at the moment is that we've had trillions of dollars pumped into the system, and I'm not sure that the price of the markets fully reflects that yet. But here's the other thing. Is nobody really knows what the end result of that's going to be. Nobody really knows where that's going to end, and then whether something else takes over, because we could go into a winter and COVID just really kicks in and rips through, and all bets are off. That would scare the market. So I know that I didn't give you the answer that you probably wanted.
Spoken like a true politician, Andy. We were talking about this the other day.
Always be investing. That is my
Always be
thing.
investing.
Always
I
be
like that.
investing.
Always be investing. It is true. Yeah, I think that's the thing. And Bob sort of said same about property, right? So, and for me, I'd echo exactly the same thing. Your long-term strategy should always be happening. Buy some good things with some fundamentals and keep learning about what they are. But your punt strategy, maybe you've got you got a bit of Bitcoin, you got a something that's topical and out there. Maybe that's 1% to 10% of your capital, but you don't risk too much. Like the same with real estate. It goes where you want a foundation of 3, 4, $5 million worth of good quality long-term hold real estate. But if you've got a couple of $100,000 of equity that if it all went up in smoke tomorrow, it wouldn't end your world. Well, yeah, invested in some, small developments or some joint ventures or something a bit more, 10, 15, 20% return potential, but it carries the risk with it, right? So it's the strategy is similar. The implementation is different. And I think that's where people get the implementation ideas mixed with the strategy, Andy. The strategy is buy good quality things and keep doing it for a long period of time, right? And understand what you're trying to achieve. Yeah.
And the best way to protect yourself against market timing and market movements is in equities is to always be investing. I can't stress that enough. And it took me a while to learn it, really, because again, it's not sexy and it's not the big, mind-blowing investment banking type of change the world approach, but it's the most effective way by a country mile. An absolute country mile. Always be investing, and you will always end up better off. And you will get the big booms, and you'll get the busts. And the trick is to try and make sure that when you do have substantial amounts in there, that you do take a bit of risk off the table when it's the right time to. And certainly we've taken some risk off the table now, a little bit. And but when we redeploy it, when markets sort of fall a little bit, we put it back in. When they run a little bit hot, we sometimes take a little bit of profit. So. Always be investing, Bob. That's that's sort of my 2 cents worth.
There you go. What was that movie? There was a movie, Always Be Closing. And I can't remember what that was called, but always be investing. I like that. Yep, there you go. Karen sort of said, is the banking sector looking to ease some of the squeeze on investors, policies, etc. Certainly, Karen, we're hoping for that. But what's actually happened is interest rates have gotten lower, which means servicing has been easier. But the policies have not changed. They haven't been repealed. There's been talk about it, but those policies are still in place. So it's easier to borrow, but it hasn't been because of policy. Like that's just the direct answer right now. There are some options. What we have seen is some new lending options come out that have nothing to do with policy in the non-bank sector, Karen. So certainly, like the light dock loans are back in flavour, and there's a few of the lenders, second-tier lenders, offering those up. And it's going to run you between 4 and 6% interest rate in comparison to maybe 2 to 4% interest rate for a regular Australia 180 loan. So. That's what's happening in that space, buddy. Unfortunately, Andy and I have said this quite a lot. Being a business owner, we don't get treated very well when it comes to lending, which is a real pain in the ass.
I just had a conversation, Jason. And they're probably watching, so we're obviously not going to use the names. But had the conversation, and look, we were having a good old laugh at it, but it's pretty horrible stuff because here's the reality. Great business, employs quite a few people, got a reasonable ATO debt sitting behind it. And I'm like, what, you're better off employing your partner, paying her your wage, you take her wage, and then you get her to buy the house because the bank will lend her the money, but you've got Buckley's chance of getting anything while you got the ATO debt. It's like, get out. And I'm like, that's just the way that it is, mate. And it's like, but I'd just fire her. And then I'm like, that's exactly right. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Like 0 cents. Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. It's crazy, Andy. But any business owners listening in, give us a shout out. Andy and I can help you with those things if you need. But unfortunately,
can't stress it enough. I think if you're a business owner, like, you need to be chatting with somebody like myself or Jace. Just the amount of absolute cluster that I've seen, because business owners kind of get taken advantage of. Because one of the things that is true is that we're always time poor. I've never met a business owner who's said that they've just got more money or more time on their head. Well, actually, I know one. That's Julie Fletcher.
Julie fucking Fletcher.
It's pretty damn rare. And so what ends up happening is that all of the documents just go in, and you can get set up in some pretty horrific scenarios, and just a little bit of strategic stuff, and it might even just be a 30-second conversation, but a little bit of strategy can go a really, really long way for small to medium business owners. And
totally, man.
And certainly when you've got good tax years, you got to strike while the iron's hot. Absolutely strike while the iron's hot. And here's the other thing about the lending, though, Jace, as well, is what's actually happened with the current book of the banks is because the property prices have gone up, revaluing of the assets, their capital has actually increased based on the leverage of their book. So they're satisfying greater amounts of capital based on their capital adequacy.
Capital requirements.
Correct.
The LVRs have reduced because the values have gone up. Yeah. There you go.
Yep. Mate, so there's a bit more buffer.
Hey, that's why you get paid the big bucks, mate. That's why you get paid the big bucks. You're all over that.
I'm not a banker wanker anymore.
That was, not anymore. Reform.
That was a past indiscretion.
Luke just gave us a shout out. Any books that deep dive into property? Luke, a bit of a plug for Sam Saggers. He's got a number of books. Track them down, mate. Either on Amazon or eBay or the likes. If you're in our mentoring program, Luke, you can grab them as part of the mentoring program. But the future of property investing in Australia is one that Sam right there, and Sags is my business partner, an absolute genius when it comes to the world of property. And mate, track him down on Urban Property Investor, his podcast, and he's got about 50 episodes in now. And mate, absolute gold, every single one of them. So hopefully that helps you, buddy, as you're going along. And make sure you dive into that. It's great to hear that that you're getting into some education or wanting to get some education, because that's really, at the end of the day, the more you get to understand the markets that you're going to be investing in, you don't have to understand right down to the nitty-gritty, but the basics of them, the good basics, not the media-led stupidity, away you go. So, mate, grab that, mate. It's a good read, certainly. And the other guy that I like, mate, is probably one of the only other property people who I would recommend in Australia, is Margaret Lomas. She's quite a good property person. She's quite conservative, so she comes from a bit more of an accountant, financial planner background. But if you sort of hedge your bets between Sam and Margaret, you'll probably end up in a good place.
I'm not sure whether I just got an impromptu drive-by just by Jace there. I think I just got thrown under the bus a little bit. I'm not quite sure.
Mate, you got to hedge your bets when it comes to the financial planning world and their love of property. Andy, you're a very rare person when it comes to the world of planning. And so there you go. At the end of the day, the property world, I know you're a big fan of property, as well as, the combination of our asset classes. So, at the end of the day, I've really enjoyed you introducing me to some interesting things, actually. So
I love it all, mate. Like I say, you don't always have steak when you go to the restaurant. Like, you've got to have a few things on your plate to really enjoy the meal. And look, and on the education piece, Luke, that's a big applause from me, because before I met Jace, and clients used to talk to me about jumping into the property market, a lot of the time and a lot of them thought that I was trying to push them off it, and I really wasn't. But one of the things that I just find astounding, and it happens so regularly, is that people spend more time figuring out what car they're bloody going to buy, like doing
Yes.
more research about, and I
True.
shit you not, Jace, every single client that I've had outside of your world who's gone and bought an investment property, and obviously we don't advise on investment property, but they've gone out and bought it. They have done less research, and I've literally gone, so tell me about that car. What was the new car? You go, oh, the Ford. Yeah, nice. Okay, so how many cylinders? Oh, it's 5 cylinders. Oh, so what's the torque? Oh, yeah, 520 Newton meters worth of torque, and at 0 to 100, and all of these bloody useless facts that they know about their car. And then I spend the same amount of time asking them questions about the property, and they're like, I paid 800,000 for it, and I've forgotten what the monthly payments are. Like, are you freaking serious?
I don't know what it rents for. All right, then.
And so my standard rule with clients, before we started chatting, Jace, was how long did it? And I go there first now. I strategically put the discussion about the car first. And I go, how long did it take you to figure that one out? And it was probably a couple of months, I reckon. I was deliberating of it. And I've gone, all right, so you want to get an investment property. It's taking a couple of months to buy an $80,000 car. Now you want to buy an $800,000 car. And so my suggestion to you is you double the amount of time that you spent researching the car, or so you times it by 10, because that's how much more money you're going to be spending. And when you've done that much research, then you're probably willing and a lot more, you're walking in with your eyes open. And that's sort of always been my advice. So kudos to you, Luke. I reckon more people should take more interest when dumping more cash into things. And
absolutely. Yeah, you're dead right, mate. You're dead right. I've got a few other ones here. Luke reckons he likes that you went to Ford first, Andy. Like sounds like Luke's a Ford guy.
we just got a Ranger, and oh God, I love it. It isn't just I feel like a man when I get into the car, and there's something about it. Yes. Ford so tough. We're going to get some haters from the Holden Brigade in a minute, Jason. We better move on.
Well, Andy, I think I said this to Shay, but I was saying to you, like I was you and I were chatting about this. I was looking at upgrading my car, and I was very keen on the Ford Raptor. Very very similar to what you've got, and I was. But the issue for me was it was a Ford. Because I grew up as a Holden guy, right? So, it's it's like I really like the car, but it's a Ford. If we could take the sticker off and put another sticker on, I'd probably buy it.
Mate, I remember it well. I was a Ford XF man. First proper car that wasn't a paddock bomb was a Ford XF.
I can see you in the Ford XF. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Station wagon. Yeah, red. Went nice and fast. Love that car. Jeez, did 500,000 Ks in that sucker.
That's so good. My first car was a Holden HQ, and 3 on the tree. It was a beast. It was a good with a straight 6. It was fun. There you go.
I did have a station wagon once, the Kingswood, and I tell you what, I think that car has still got a little bit of my back skin on it, because we were driving it down from Karratha up in WA. It was a 50-degree day. Completely forgot about it. Went for a swim in the swimming hole. Came back and sat down in the car, and you could hear the back just sizzling on the leather bucket seats.
Yes, indeed. That's such an Australian thing. Karen gave us a shout out. What's the LVR on that type of lending, Karen? You can get up to 80% lending in light doc. So that's perfectly fine. 80% works. You do get a bit of you have to pay a little bit of LMI at that level as well. So if it's under 70% with light doc, you don't pay the LMI, but if it's over 70%, you do. So there are some options out there when it comes to those things as well. So keep an eye on those. Give us a shout out if you need some help. Andy, which financial agency is reasonable for SMSF loan? So do you have any opinions on the SMSF lending world? I do know there's about 5 or 6 lenders out there that do reasonably good SMSF lending at the moment, but the LVRs in SMSF lending, to be safe, are probably 60 to 70%, is probably where you want to land it. 80% lending, it says it on the stickers, but it's very rare, and you probably wouldn't want to push to that level anyway with your investment properties. But any feedback on that? Any thoughts on that one?
No, mate, just mirror that. You want to be conservative with your LVRs. Also, the cost of the interest is significantly higher.
Yeah.
It should come down over time, but there's enough complexity in there that you want to keep it reasonably low, because what makes sense, doesn't it? If you're paying twice the interest rate or even 3 times the interest rate, if you've got a loan for half as much, you're probably going to be in a similar sort of cash flow position. And when it comes to super, cash flow is king. And so you just got to watch that one, because you just don't want to put yourself into a position whereby somebody moves out, you don't get the cash in, and then you're forced to put money into your super fund, and you might be quite young. You just want to avoid that at all costs. Like, you can do it, but then that's just money that you're going to tie up, and ultimately, if just being a little bit more conservative can serve you really, really well. Depends on the deal. Depends on your circumstances.
You don't want to be pouring the cash in too early, Andy. Yeah.
That's my opinion, and it's just give yourself flexibility and options.
Yeah. Very important question, though. This one's probably the most important one yet. So, Andy, did you have long flowing hair back in the day?
Alison, did you know me in a previous live? I had I had hair down to here, and it was it's super, super curly, my hair, or it used to be, and so I'd go into these fat ringlets along to go on with my chubby little belly. I was super fit. I was playing for Victoria in hockey, and so I was super fit, but I just had a little bit of puppy fat on me. Didn't grow up until a little bit later on. And at one point in time, Jace, it was peroxide down to here as well. And I was a broke musician at that point in time, and the hair started to grow out. So the roots started growing out. So it was peroxide from here down to there.
I reckon Margot could probably provide us with a couple of photos. Margot, I'm giving you a photo challenge on that one.
Mate, we just looked through some of them the other day, and I'm like, there's some photos that should never see the light of day there, I can tell you.
I certainly matched you on that one, Andy. I had a very sporting mullet that was peroxide blonde, very Jason Donovan-esque back in the day. So there you go. I can't throw too much crap your way.
Mate, well, style definitely died in my hands, I can tell you that much. I sort of look back on pictures of me with girlfriends, and I'm thinking, what was going through your head, woman? Like, honestly, look at him. Look at the state of this bloke. Not much has changed. Not much has changed.
I reckon that's probably a good way to end the night, actually.
I'll just touch on one more thing, mate, because it is that time of the year. So with us and with our clients, this time of the year, it's the end of the financial year, and so we use it for a reassessment of everything. So ideally, what you should be doing now is you should be looking at your entire financial foundation, right? So you should be having a look at all of these different areas. And there we go. You should be having a look at all of these different areas in your life over the coming month and a half, maybe 2 months. Cash flow budgeting, your mortgages, your super, your investments, your insurance, personal insurance. Oh, we didn't answer those insurance questions, but maybe we'll get to that next week. The tax and accounting, property, portfolios, equipment leasing, legal, wills, conveyancing, estate planning, all of those sorts of things. This is really what you need to be looking at right now and starting to assess what the year ahead has planned for you. And if you follow the rhythms that we provide, we split the year up into quarters. We're thinking about bring it down to thirds, but at the moment it's in quarters, and it's in January, it's all about New Year's resolution. It's all about having a look at your cash flow, but also replanting what is the number one focus for the year? What are we going to be focusing on financially? And setting the year up in line with your 10, 15, 20-year plan. Then when it comes to April, you've heard us say it before, it's March, April, that's tax time for us because we want to start early and get prepared for it. In July, that's when we look at what we call a foundational review. So this is where you want to be looking at all of these different areas of your life and understanding, do I need to decrease my insurance? Do I need to increase it? Where's my mortgage? Do I look at refinancing soon? The beauty about doing stuff like that now as well is, and now is a little bit different to normal years, most people are rushing to get their stuff in for the end of financial year. So typically brokers can actually have a little bit of a downtime after July, August. So it's a really good time to get in to them as well. If you want to increase the levels of your fight, keep topping it up every 2-3 years, refinancing it, putting the money in the offset account, and doing all those sorts of things. So my big tip for everybody here of things that you should know is that this is the time to be looking at your financial foundation, understanding how it fits in with the greater scheme, the greater plan that you've got, and really focusing in on any areas that just need tweaking. You don't have to adjust all of it. You just need to look at it and just see how it fits in. And I promise you'll look at least one of them and you'll go, yep, thanks, Andy. Yeah, we should be tweaking that a little bit. And so now is the perfect time to do that. Because then later on in the year, we get into then reshuffling and looking at our investments and things of that nature. So that's just my little 2 cents worth as a little tip of something that you should know and something that you should be doing right now as the end of financial year.
No, mate, that's a great tip. Certainly bringing it back into focus for us all is always worth doing at certain sections of the year. So no, great, good shout out. That's for sure. And what I might do if anyone's listening in, might get you to come as a guest. I thought we might be able to do it today, but maybe Monday or Tuesday again. Maybe drop by on Wealth Coffee Chats, and we can talk about that life insurance borrowing thing because that's something that it comes up a bit, and I think that'd be a great chat when it comes to those things, man. So
100%.
That'd be awesome. Well, brother, great to chat with you, folks. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys popping by and supporting the channel and supporting us, supporting you. And great to see you guys in there as we're going along and, giving us some questions. Hardik asked one question. Hardik, I'm going to answer that for you next week. So keep an eye out. Keep you coming back, Hardik. I know you pop by on Wealth Coffee Chats as well, mate. So I'll see you Monday morning, Hardik. All right, that's all for you. I'll get you right onto that one. Is building defect work done to be added to expensive investment property appreciation schedule. I'll copy that one as we go. Good on you, gang. Great to have you guys hanging out on a Friday night. You guys have fun. Have an awesome weekend. Thanks for joining us, Andy. One Wealth and Wisdom done again for another week.
Cheers,
Take care, my friend. Cheers, everyone. Join us again next week.
It's good night
Friday.
from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.